All right, welcome to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Scott Peters from Irondequoit PD. He has over 32 years experience on the job. He spent 16 years in SWAT. He's really involved in peer support and officer wellness. So I'm really excited to have Chief Scott Peters on the show. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you. But before we do that, I want to kind of give a shout out.
Sure.
At the time of recording, it's your birthday.
Yeah. 57 years old today. So I can't believe it's going to be 3 more years and I'll be 60, but I definitely don't feel it, but it's still 57. It's kind of it's kind of a humbling number, I guess, but I feel it in my bones, but I don't feel it in my head. So it's okay.
Yeah, well, happy birthday. And I feel the same way. Like every time I get older, I'm like, I feel the same,
Yeah.
like inside.
Yep.
Like you said, physically, maybe a little bit different, but like inside, I'm like, I still feel young. I still feel like I'm in my 20s. I
Yep.
don't know if that'll ever go away, but I think that that's really kind of beautiful. Like you still maintain like that spirit inside, you know?
You have to, and I kind of take a look at, a lot of people around that are my age, and I thank God that I've actually been relatively healthy throughout my whole life, and I try and stay healthy, try and work out every day. But I see some people, I'm like, man, I can't believe they're the same age or even younger than me,
I
and so
know.
yeah, you look at movies and you look at some of the characters that have played, and you look at how old they were when they played those characters, like, oh my God, they seem like they were so much older, and but it's yeah, they still I think it's all on how you take care of yourself. I mean, if you stay active, if you do things that are going to keep you young at heart for your whole life, then you're probably going to age gracefully. I like to think.
And I think that that is one of my motivations for wellness too, is like I want that longevity and I want to be able to be in my 60s, 70s, 80s and feel good and be
Yep.
able to move and not be, stuck or immobile or, and I
Yeah.
think that it's kind of a testament to that. It's like if you start thinking about it now and say, okay, like what do I want in the future, and then how can I achieve that? And then that kind of is that motivation to put in the effort because
Yeah.
it's not always easy to wake up when that alarm goes off and go to the gym. And but if you're like, nope, I'm doing this because I'm looking around and my friend group is looking rough and I don't want to be like that.
Exactly. I looked at it and thank God I was, like I said, I did all those years of SWAT. I kind of think of us obviously the tactical athletes, and we had lots of injuries, but we learned how to get through them and how to repair the body and get back to what you had to do. So I think that's a great thing right now is how many different surgeries I've had. I don't care, but better living through science and put me back together and let me get back to have that quality of life. I think a lot of people just live with pain and they're afraid to actually go to see a surgeon. Get it done so that you can get back and actually live in your life instead of wishing that you would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah, and I would love if you could give a little background. I know you said 16 years SWAT,
Mhm.
32 years on the job. How did you get into law enforcement? What did
Sure.
those 32 years look like? Maybe give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, so I was actually I all I planned on was going into the military back. I graduated in the mid '80s from high school. I wanted to go in the military, and I had actually had an asthma attack when I was like 14. So I grew up with childhood asthma. If it was up to my mom, I would have been the boy in the bubble. But I realized that actually exercise helped my asthma. So that's the reason why I actually, got into being as, physically active as I was. So when I found out that the military wouldn't take me, it was peacetime. I next thing I went and actually started taking classes at the local community college. Thought I wanted to be an electrical engineer. I would go to the Air Force, let them teach me because it would have been, hey, let them pay for all my training, and they have obviously the best electronics in the world. That didn't work out, so I actually took a couple of. I tried to take electronics in school, and quickly found out that it wasn't for me. I had a couple of classes that were electives, and one of them happened to be Introduction to Police Science, and I was hooked ever since then. So I got through all my college. Actually went 2 years to a local MCC 2-year college, and then I went 2 years to the State University Oswego, New York State four-year college there. Played baseball and ice hockey up there, and then actually was taking tests all throughout, while I was at college, and finally, eventually, by the Rochester Police Department back in 1992. Like I said, 27 years with Rochester Police Department. At the time, the Rochester Police Department was probably one of the, I would think, I would humble brag that it was probably one of the best police departments in the country. Phenomenal, always on the forefront of training, everything, policies, everything we did. So completely grateful for it. And also our SWAT team. Our SWAT team was the second oldest SWAT team in the country. So being able to get on that team was obviously next best thing to being in the military. And so it was a lifestyle. You had to want it. You had to sit there and, having to go through qualifications 2 times a year. I mean, you had to get over that 8-foot wall. You had to get through the obstacle course. You had to do all those skills to keep your shooting skills and everything else up. So you had to tailor your life to be able to sit there and be as efficient and as good as you could when the bell rang. And the bell rang a lot for us. We were a very active team. And, I think that was one of those things that was just instilled into you by, all the older guys that were actually on the team that brought you through there. So yeah, after I got done with that, I retired in mid 2019. I didn't think I was quite done with it, but I mean, I saw the department just wasn't the same. We were just going through, we had, all the riots and everything that were going on, and I saw the writing on the wall. So I left and went over, and I was a major felony investigator for the local Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Worked there for about 3.5 years. While I was there, I took the civil service exam for the chief's position. And then 2 years ago, this position here in Irondequoit opened up. And Irondequoit's a northern suburb of Rochester. So we border right on the northeast part of the city of Rochester. And it's a great department, perfect size. We have 53 officers. And Irondequoit's always been, they've always been known as just a solid police department. So I jumped at the chance to be able to have it. And since I've been here, it's been probably one of the best experiences of my life. I have some of the best officers in the county, I say. And, they just needed to be known that they could actually be police officers again. So I think for many years that everybody tried to be safe. They couldn't say the right thing and just show up and look good for pictures. But, these guys wanted to be police officers. There's a reason why they, signed on the dotted line and raised their hand and took the oath. So I took all those years of experience, and I'm trying to give them the same opportunities that I had.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back to something that you said before,
Sure.
because you said tactical athletes,
Yeah.
and you talked about your SWAT team and this high caliber of performance and expectation physically to be able to do the job. And we know that, groups like SWAT and military, it's really interesting because I find that usually that's the group that is the most receptive to
Yes.
wellness stuff.
Yes.
But then you also get this kind of flip side to it where everyone's like, oh, we don't do that. We're cops. Like, we need that wellness stuff. But then you see these groups like, military groups, SWAT groups that are like, no, we're all about it. Like, we want to make sure we're physically well. And then some of the other things that are really common are, breathing techniques and mindfulness. And so there is this kind of culture within, the SWAT team of like you said, tactical athletic performance, mental performance, trying to operate at a really high level.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my question is, one, why do you think that is kind of unique to SWAT? And did you see that same level of expectation for performance in other areas of the organization?
I would say for the specialized teams, we'd always joke, especially when we're out running or doing like a group activity with SWAT. Guys were complaining, that it was, too hot, we're going too far, doing all that stuff. And then they're like, well, scuba's always hiring. But I'm telling you, I haven't worked with the scuba guys and look at some of the stuff they do. those guys are absolutely phenomenal. So it
Oh,
was just
yeah,
a joke that we would sit there and,
sure.
obviously friendly rivalries, kind of like what we have with like our fire departments and all.
Fire. Yeah, I thought that's what I thought
Yeah,
too. I was like, it sounds very similar to just like razzing each
yeah,
other a little bit. Yeah.
yeah. But really, the biggest thing, especially our team, our selection process was quite extensive, and it was the fact that you could have been the best runner, you could have been the best shooter, you could have done whatever else, but if you were not a good teammate, we didn't want you. And if you were a cowboy and if you had a lot of complaints and internal affairs, we didn't want you. We didn't want cowboys. We wanted people that were going to be good teammates. And we always nobody on the team ever wanted to disappoint their teammate. And we always realized that my life is in this other person's hands. And when you're going through a door, I always had that, especially with the bomb squad guys. I'm at the mercy of what the bomb maker wanted to put out there. And some of that stuff is, quite frankly, scary as hell. But if you say there's a guy in the other side, in the other room that wants to shoot me, okay, I can deal with that because I know I got good teammates. I know I'm going to have good tactics and I'm going to have good policies. They're going to be able to get me through that door and keep all of my teammates safe. So you looked at it as you never wanted to be the guy falling back on runs. You never wanted to be the guy that didn't qualify. So it was something personal that we kept inside. So we always pushed each other individually, but then pushed each other out on the range. We'd have competitions all the time, not because we thought we were better than each other, but you know what? Let's push each other to make sure that we are the best. And you know what? That was a sense of pride. We did not see that in the department. The department, obviously, their mission was completely different. Their mission was to answer 911 calls and, provide, obviously, general police services. So just getting through the day was good enough. And, for us, that wasn't good enough. So that's when we were talking about it, I think that's where you see as far as like the SWAT guys, as, you're taking the guys who really want to be proactive about things. And they also have open minds. I don't want a robot when I'm on SWAT. I want somebody that's going to be an operator, somebody who can operate through the chaos. They can think through those challenging dilemmas, and they're not going to just curl up in a ball or freeze. I want somebody who's actually going to say, hey, you know what, here's a way to, that we can get around this. So that's what we were always looking for. And so I think that's where you see our minds were always open to different things.
And, you and I talked about this a little bit
Mm-hmm.
with, kind of post-academy training or expectations. And I think that things are changing now. I do think
Yeah.
that you're starting to see more wellness and,
Mm-hmm.
physical and mental fitness in the academy and, post-graduation. But how do you think that you can create that culture of team
Mm-hmm.
mentality and a high expectation of performance within other areas of the organization? Like how can kind of what you guys did in SWAT of this like really high level team
Yep.
mentality, how do you think that that can be applied or incorporated into other areas of the agency?
Well, especially, with my agency, it's great because I do have a lot less people. I mean, Rochester Police Department had almost 800 officers at one time. And I said, so my department has 53 officers. So it's easy for us to do things. We have the wherewithal, we have the support, and it's easy for us to take all those things that we used in SWAT, and I can easily bring them to our guys. So we can create all of our own training. We have our own mat room so that we can do our jujitsu. We have our own range here, so we can actually get guys out on the range. I send all my officers to as much training as I can and my instructors to as much training as I can. So we can do all of our own training here. And I'm a big fan of what we call, the micro training. So if I can take a guy off the road for an hour and we can go and do a couple different scenarios and then put them back in service, I mean, that's great. Instead of taking somebody out of service for a full 8 hours, we're able to do little things just to kind of keep our training fresh and trying to keep our guys' skills up to speed. So that's where we can do it. As far as how do I get them the team aspect, I mean, the team aspect is having friendly different competitions between the different platoons. Obviously, day platoon is different than afternoons, and then midnights is a whole different creature. And trying to balance that work-life effort through working on midnights is completely different. I did it for 7.5 years. And so you really have to kind of be mindful of, what is available and what you can do to actually get these officers to do the same thing. Really, the biggest thing is pride in our agency. I'm proud to sit there and have these patches on my shoulder and wear this badge. I'm proud to sit there and say that I work for the Irondequoit Police Department. I work for them. It's not that they work for me. I work for them. So my job is just to try and get them everything that they need to sit there and try and make their day as easy as possible and to make their day as efficient as possible. And at the end of the day, when they do something good, it's our job to sit there and publicly praise them. But I also have to hold those standards. There's standards that you need to meet, and there's standards that I expect. So, I always say that we can handle no, we just have to be told no. And a lot of times people have gotten away with, they shy away, they don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations. But I can tell an officer that, they messed up, but not take it personal. We can deal with what we have to deal with, and then we just move on. And it's forgotten about. It's pretty simple. So it's those little things on those daily interactions where you can sit there and we'll have pride in our uniform and our pride in our department. So it may not be the small tactics we had in SWAT or the selection, but I've hired, I think, 7 or 8 people since I've actually started here. So I'm hiring people that are going to be like-minded. So it's a good thing.
I love the idea of micro training. I haven't had anyone mention that on the
Yeah.
podcast yet. I think that that is really a cool thing. Like you said, like little things that you can do throughout the day. You're not pulling
Hmm.
people off, for a full 8 hours. They feel like you're investing in them
Yep.
and their training consistently. And that is going to create more of that confidence because you're
Yes.
constantly doing that training. So I think that that's really, really cool. I also like, I mean, I'm a huge, competition fan. Like I think that really does, like you'll see people band together
Oh yeah.
when there's, like you said, like pride or a reward or like bragging rights or whatever it is at
Yeah.
the end of it. So I love that you use like friendly competition as a way to kind of bring people together as a team because we know like, and there's a lot of conversation about like, wellness in the sense of groups
Yep.
versus isolation.
Yeah.
And we hear a lot that in law enforcement, one of the big challenges, especially on patrol, is that you're alone out there.
Yeah.
You are in your car alone. You go to a critical incident. You see some really hard, terrible things.
Yeah.
Experience people at their worst,
Yeah.
and then you get into your vehicle alone.
Yep.
And you have to process it alone. And so then there's the conversation of like, okay, well, why does it seem as though, and I'm doing quotes, it seems as though fire maybe has a better process, or maybe like things don't affect them. And it's like, okay, well, they go into their truck together. They're
Hmm.
talking about this, they're processing it like, hey, that was crazy, man. Like, are you okay? Is everyone okay? And you have that kind of like group team mentality.
Yep.
And I think that it's important to recognize, in on the PD side, that you do have a team to
Hmm.
lean on. And while it might feel isolating just because of the nature of, getting in your vehicle alone, that you still do have a team and a family back, at the PD that you can lean on. I don't know if you agree with that or
No, no, it makes complete sense. I mean, so just like you said, the fire service. I mean, when the guys get back, I mean, they jump into the quint or the midi or anything like that. There's 4 guys. There's 3 other guys around them. They're going back to a firehouse. They're living with the same firemen for sometimes up to like 12, 24 hours. So, I think you kind of it's you got a small family, and the fact that you all have to do your chores, you have to, that's your house for the next day or so, or 2 days, and all that stuff. So you got to make sure that you don't leave the house a mess, and just like when we were kids, if you did something, your parents would hold you accountable. So, but we're adults now, so we hold each other accountable. With the police department too, I mean, I think the hardest thing as far as asking for help, a lot of times people don't want to know that, don't want to let people know that they're suffering because of I think the stigma. So, when we offer our peer support, our wellness things, it's offered in basically in a uh, I'm not forcing it down their throat. We have it there. We want to let people know these are some of the things that are available to you. And being able to just have conversations. And, like I said, I think there was one time where I actually had we were talking about it. So I had a coworker from RPD. He got viciously attacked. He got stabbed right in the side of the eye, all caught on body-worn camera, and he lost sight in both of his eyes. He lived, but having that happened like when I was at the district attorney's office. And then when I remember, I mean, this kid was, just one of the perfect street cops that you could have ever seen. His wife was a school teacher in the city, and he was the 25, 26-year veteran that would always take, a young FTO that was having issues. So he was kind of like the father figure. He was that guy that always showed up and never complained, and always just like, yep, this is a great job. So when he got injured, and he could have easily sat there and said, hey, you know what, I'm going to just wallow in my sorrow. But Denny has been absolutely amazing, because he gets up, and he even said, like, at the sentencing, not going to take my life from me. I'm still alive. I'm still here. And you're going to prison. So he goes, I can either sit here and be a sad sack for the rest of my life, or I've got a life to live. I've got a family to take care of. So you're not going to bother me. So watching Denny go through that whole process, was pretty horrific. And he goes around and he talks to other officers around the area. But when I watch, and I brought him here to our department to talk to some of our guys, and I got a little choked up, and I think a lot of these years, like you say, you see all these things, you see all these critical incidents, and you realize that, we always had to have that stiff upper lip and be able to work through it. But I don't know, I guess maybe with my age, I feel like maybe some of those shields are coming down a little bit, and realize that sometimes some of those things do affect us. And I don't know if it's PTSD, it's accumulation of everything and all that stuff. I'm sure it is, because I look at the amount of stuff that we've seen in a 32-year career. I was always on the road. It's not like I was in an office. So you've seen that stuff. And so acknowledging it and not being afraid to sit there and say, yeah, absolutely, I'm messed up, and not saying that you're messed up, that you can't function, but my version of reality is a little bit different than somebody who's never had to, deal with what we've had to deal with. So, yeah, do we get messed up? Yes, we do. But does it take over your life? No, you can, we've always learned to compartmentalize a lot of that stuff right there. But you can realize that, yeah, maybe my thought process is not the same as a person that's never been a police officer. But realize that it's okay, and it's not a stigma. You're not an ogre, and it's not something that's going to debilitate you. But you talk your way through it, and not be afraid to sit there and talk to people. And that's really the biggest thing. Is people, I always say, check your ego at the door. I don't care that I'm wearing the stars. I don't care that I'm the chief and all that stuff. The youngest police officer, I can always sit down and have a conversation with him, and he's always welcome to come in my office. And if he's, thinks that he's got a crazy or harebrained idea, hey, bring it up to me, man. Maybe we've never looked at it from your perspective,
Yeah.
So it's those are the big things. Is realizing that, yeah, there are people out there to sit there and talk to, but it's you have to sit there and realize that, what, it's part of life, it's part of the job we've chosen, but we can get through it. And there's different levels of how it affects each other. So we have to realize that not one solution is good for every officer. So
For sure. And, there's that saying that like your past doesn't define you. And I actually always like will kind of push against that, because
sure.
I kind of disagree. I think that your past experiences do affect you, and they do, I wouldn't say they define, that doesn't have to define your future in a way, but I do think
Mhm.
that like my past experiences make me who I am.
Yes.
And I think that for anyone to be like, oh, like that doesn't affect you, that doesn't affect, yes, it does. I think that your past experiences, your preconditioning shape your perception of the world. It
Yeah.
shapes how you respond to situations.
Yeah.
It shapes how you want to move forward in your life. And you can choose to allow these adverse experiences and these challenging things to impact you in a positive way. Like you can flip them around and it can be like, okay, I went through this really hard stuff, and now I want to help others and I want to, be that voice, where
Mhm.
I can share those things with other people. But I do think that your past defines you in a way.
Sure.
And I think that to say that, being 32 years on the job, that all
Yeah.
that stuff didn't have an impact on, who you are today, I think is just not true. Like
Yeah. Well,
obviously it did. And of course, like you said, like you like went through those things and you're like, okay, well now I can use that as like words of wisdom for newer officers. Like I can be, inspiration for other people. Like I can, people can learn from me and like I can learn from those things and choose to live my life in a different way than maybe I did before, but I think that, obviously I think being in this job for a long time, it is going to impact you for sure.
yeah. Yeah. And, I think as we, us as human beings, I mean, everybody gets worried about what your image is to outside people, and almost kind of feels like you kind of have to make yourself into hopefully not a person that's that you a fake person. I can't stand obviously a fake person, but
Mhm.
I think it kind of hammered me home. I remember when I first was asked to be deputy chief over in for Rochester. I was walking with my daughter. I'm riding a longboard, a skateboard, and I remember looking and I'm saying, "Hey, does that mean I can't ride my skateboard anymore?" And she's like, "Absolutely not." So it's one of these things where you think, you have to have this public image and all that stuff, but I'm always the firm believer of what you see is what you get. I have zero filter. I think that is great because as we get older, we learn to tolerate less BS. But having those great experiences allows you to sit there and be able to pass on that wisdom, so to speak. But you also have to make sure that you're not judgmental. And so I've always considered, yeah, the job has defined me. If people look at me, they're like, yep, you're a cop. Absolutely. That's what you are. But I'm also like the anti-cop. I'm not the traditional staid, stoic cop that, doesn't know how to sit there and read between the lines. I mean, I think with age comes wisdom and able to sit there and actually have a little bit more judgment to be able to make some different calls than instead of like, nope, it's black and white and this is what we're going to do right here. So yeah, I think we get caught up too much in what we think other people are going to think. And quite frankly, I don't think that way. I don't. If you always have to be true to yourself and be the same person that you've always been. And so, like I said, I refuse to make myself into something else because I think that's what people want. So, and
Yeah.
I'm a cop, and you know what? I'm proud to be a cop, and I think the profession has taken a hit within the last few years. But you know what? That's the reason why when I'm a chief here, I want to make people realize that I want them to be proud to be police officers. We are. It's a great job. It's the best job in the world. People write movies, write books, and about our job. They still have TV shows. Cops was the longest running reality TV show for years. People love the job. Even though sometimes you look at social media or anything else, it's easy to bash the police officers. But you know what? It takes a special person to do this job. And you get to see the best and the worst of society. People have you have front row seats to life, and the experiences that we have. People always want to hear a cop story. You go to a party, people are like, "Hey, tell me a cool story." Do you think
Yeah.
they say that to the Xerox executive, going into a meeting and say, "Hey, how was that board meeting?" So embrace it. Yeah, I mean, the we don't see people at their best. People don't call 911 when they're having a good day. People call 911 on their worst days. And so we always see people on their worst. but you can't let that define, how you go to work each day and become that callous, salty cop. I mean, I still love coming to work each day, and I still love doing the job. So I think that's what kind of carries you through your career.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
I think that that level of authenticity, I think that comes and maybe you were born with it and you were just like, this is me. But for me personally, I feel like it took me time to, and I wouldn't say that I was fake, but I think that like I wanted people to just see the best parts of me.
Hmm.
I wasn't like comfortable with people seeing the messy parts or the imperfect parts. And so I think that maybe that comes with age. I don't know, but now it's like, that same idea of like, this is me, this is who I am. And I think that that is so relatable to people because nobody's perfect. And
Right.
I now when I see someone who like puts on this image of like perfection, I'm like, okay, what's going on under the surface? Because that's not relatable at all. Like there's
Yep.
no one that has a perfect life like that. And
Yep.
I think especially in leadership, if you have that ability to be authentic, like you said, check the ego at the door, lower the shield and say, this is who I am. And I like to ride a skateboard on my time off. People can relate to that and then it humanizes you and it makes more of that like safe space to feel like you can have those conversations, if and when you need something or you need help. And one of the things that you said quite a few times was that you want to empower your your personnel, your cops, sworn and civilian. I'm assuming you want to, empower them to one, be able to seek resources. And I'd love for you to kind of explain some of the stuff. I know you said peer
Hmm.
support and things like that, but also to be able to do their job, and that was one of the things that you said. It's like before there was all this fear that like, I can't go out and actually be a cop. I can't do my job. I'm under all
Hmm.
this scrutiny. We have cameras everywhere, social media you mentioned. And so
Yeah.
I would love if you could kind of explain a little bit about how you empower your agency to do their job and be cops and some of the resources that you have on the wellness side,
Sure.
if and when they need something.
Yeah, so I'll get to the wellness side real quick. When I first started, the big thing that they wanted to have was a peer support group, and um, basically a holistic wellness type approach for the officers. So I looked at it. I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great because it's something that I never had when I was, first starting out for my career. Rochester, we never had that while I was there, and so being in a smaller department, I think it was an easier ask and easier task to accomplish. But I put it back on them also. The caveat was, yeah, I can establish a peer support group and all that stuff, but this has to be driven by the officers because I can tell you, okay, here's your peer support and here's your wellness, and nobody wants to listen to the chief. This is coming from your peers. This is coming from you. So in a way, also, I kind of develop them. I'm like, you guys are going to have to write the general order. You guys are going to have to sit there and get this through the union to sit there and make sure that it's okay. I want you guys to drive it, and we can help you write the general order, but you're going to have to sit there and write it yourselves. And then it kind of teaches them, okay, this is the admin part of the job that nobody likes, but it's from them. So it worked really well. We were able to get it all established, and our officers are now part of the countywide peer support team. Really good for them. We just had a critical incident where it was easy enough for our guys just to reach out to the affected officers and say, "Hey, we're here. You need anything? Call us 24 hours a day." And so it was a great thing. Wellness, we're trying to do anything we can, be it having a couple of our guys like to go up to the local community center and play pickleball in uniform against, some of the people. So they love seeing the officers in there. And so they're putting together a pickleball tournament, for us to have up there.
Fun.
We put together some goofy things like goat yoga. My wife and I actually went and did a goat yoga last year, and baby goats and yoga is pretty awesome, especially when you got goats crawling all over you and doing all that stuff. So we're gonna bring it to the department here and actually have it in our roll call room. So it's one of
Fun.
those things where you're like, you can't be afraid as the chief or the upper administration to be able to do that stuff. look goofy, because you know what, at the end of the day, you're just the same as the officer. So if you can't roll up your sleeves and do the same thing that the officers did, never forget where you came from. So you know what, pick up those boxes, help clean up the brass. Training, you're doing everything that the officers have to do with the officers. So if we're in the last time we were at in-service training, I picked the biggest officer and I had him as my partner while we're doing jujitsu. I mean, fold me up like a pretzel, big gorilla like him and all that stuff. But you know what? You have to sit there and realize that, you know what, you got to get in there, and there's no longer sitting on the sidelines. I expect all of my administrative captains and lieutenants to do everything that the officers are doing. So that's the way it is. I forgot the first part we were talking about. You said wellness, and then
empowering them to, be able to do their job. And
yeah,
like you said, to be able
yep.
to, not have that fear on the streets to make decisions.
Yeah. So the nice thing about it is we have a really supportive town board and town supervisors. So that's really been the key thing. A couple of years ago when I first started, we have issues with I'm sure you've seen it across the country, the ATVs and dirt bikes swarming, taking over the streets and doing all this stuff, groups of like 200 of them. So our town supervisor at the time got caught up in the middle of one of those around 4th of July. And he called me on a Sunday afternoon and he was livid. What are we going to do about it? So I'm like, okay, there's a couple different things we can do. I said, first of all, we have to change our chase policy. Our chase policy was very restrictive before. And he goes, no, get that started. And the other thing was I needed chasing a dirt bike with a Ford Explorer is not really easiest thing because dirt bikes can go wherever they want. So I'm like, I was going to put my officers on dirt bikes. Then we already had ATVs. But then obviously I made the pitch for razors, the side-by-sides. So I got the fastest razors we could. He said, go buy 2 of them. We had ARPA money at the time. And we painted them or striped them to look just like one of our patrol cars. And now our officers actually go out on patrol, like on details, in side-by-side razors. And we allow them to chase vehicles. The way I look at it is, I can teach you how to shoot a gun. I can teach you when to shoot a gun. I can teach you, the Constitution and when you're allowed to use deadly physical force to safeguard your life or the life of another person. And you usually have about maybe a quarter to a half a second to make that decision when you have to. So with the police chases, everybody's worried about liability and all that stuff. I'm like, well, why can't I give you at least 30 seconds to think through this problem? You're a police officer. I don't hold your hand for the rest of the day. So if you have to turn on your lights and sirens and try and stop somebody, why can't you think through that process? So I allowed my officers to actually start chasing criminals again. And it was obviously very empowering for the officers. But I also told them, listen, you have our policies, you have the laws of New York State, you have the Constitution, and I said at the end of the day, you also have to realize that we have the AG's office that do investigations. So you could be following all the policies in the world, but the Attorney General's office is still going to come in and investigate you. So you have to make sure that you are acting as any other reasonable officer would act. So that's really been awesome, is the fact that they have been able to check themselves. They've been able to actually, realize at first, okay, oh, this is great, we can chase cars again. But they've also been, you explained some of the history of some of the things that I've seen and done back when we used to be able to chase cars way back when, and realize some of the pitfalls and some of the legal problems that could actually happen. So they've been really great with it. We also have, our supervisors at any time, they have to monitor each chase and they can shut the chase down at any time. Chasing a car at 3:00 in the morning is different than chasing a car at 3:00 in the afternoon. So allowing my officers to go through that whole mental process and actually try and internalize, why are they doing this? What are they chasing a person for? Doing all that stuff. That's been a huge thing, is allow them to actually be, like I said, be police officers again. So it's worked out quite well. And I think it definitely helped in our town is ever since we started doing that, we don't have the groups of ATVs and dirt bikes coming through our town anymore because they know our officers will be there to sit there and chase them. So it was a big example, but you know what? It takes the support of the actual town that you're working to be able to do something like that. But I was happy to give that to the officers, and quite frankly, we're very closely with the state police who, have the same policies we do. So we work hand in hand with those guys.
And I think it just goes back to like that word that you had used earlier that I keep kind of hearing is like you're empowering your
Hmm.
officers to make decisions, and that reduces the fear.
Hmm.
And I mean like fear of losing your job or doing the wrong thing. And if you know like what you can do, and
Hmm.
you have the support of your agency, then it just takes that extra stress off of you. And then, on the wellness side of it, I love that you do small fun things,
Hmm.
and I think that sometimes we forget that, like sometimes it's the small things that matter, and it's building that team camaraderie, and making sure that they know that you are a part of the team too, and you're doing these things. Like how fun is that to my mic. How fun is that to like fold Chief up like a pretzel in jujitsu? Like I'm sure that like to them was the best day ever. And then, pickleball competitions and things that you guys, can do, and these small, like easy things that are fun.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you have other resources in place like peer support, where again, that empowerment is there, and that fear goes away of like, hey, like if I do need to talk to someone, I'm not going to lose my job. Like I
Yep.
don't have the fear because this agency is supporting this. They have this in place for a reason. And so if I do need to go talk to someone, I have those resources. So
Yeah.
I just kept like in my head, empowerment kept coming up,
Hmm.
and kind of reducing that fear, and having fun too.
Well, you have to realize, I mean, these officers, I mean, we're adults. We're all adults. So I look at it, a couple of my coworkers I used to work with, they were like career military guys. I'm like, that's easy to talk to an 18-year-old private. You can get them to do whatever you want because they have to. You have to realize too is, so this generation that's coming up now is the information generation. So they ask questions because they won't accept the BS, so they're going to want to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. So
Yeah.
you have to make sure that when you're doing things, there's always going to be times, well, because I'm the chief, I said so. There'll be those times, but for things that the reason why we're doing it, let me explain to you why we're doing it, and let's try it out. I allow people to sit there and come up with some idea that they want to try. I said, well, let's test it out. Let's see if it works. It may not work for the next agency that's next to us, or for the Monroe County Sheriffs, but for Irondequoit, it works for us. Our town is different than every other town that's around us. So they're human beings, they're adults, and they have ideas. So listen to them and let them bring them forward. Some could be crazy, some could be not so crazy. But you know what? If it's something that we're like, hey, let's take a look at it. Simple thing like the uniforms. We always, I had a, we've always been very, I want to say, um, very traditional in our uniforms. And we have the overcoat, the blouses, the hats, everything, all that stuff. And there's again, bring it back to SWAT. We're always looking at what are the latest, greatest things. So you're looking at fabrics that are going to keep yourself comfortable, but they're also going to be a lot more functional than that wool polyester shirt that you had before. So let's look at these things and let's try and incorporate them into our everyday working. So if the officers want to wear an outer vest carrier, they can, because I said, but there's also shortcomings in that too. So when they come back to the office, they have to have the proper undershirt on to make sure that they look like a police officer. But I mean, you let's try these different types of uniforms. Baseball hats. Guys want to wear the baseball hats, instead of the traditional parade hat that we have. Yeah, absolutely. Let's sit there and take a look at it. But I made the officers actually design it, and they realized how everybody was, couldn't come to a consensus. And I said, see, it's not easy to please everybody. So let's make sure we have something that's going to look good, and it's not going to get sun faded, and it's going to look professional. And it's up to you guys, because I don't want to see you guys rolling the brims on them. I don't want to see tobacco stains on them. I don't want to see salt stains on them. But it's up to you to police yourselves, because the minute I start to see it, it gets taken away. I did the same thing with the beards when I first got in here. Never was able to had to have a clean shaved face for my whole career. But I was like, you know what? As long as you keep it nice and trimmed, it's on you. Because if I start to see them getting them out of hand, then it goes away. So letting the guys like that to make them feel like more human beings, then
Yeah.
you know what? I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah. I love that you said making them feel like human beings because you said that earlier too of like
Mhm.
you're not robots and you are human beings and I also love that you keep bringing up like having an open mind and
Mhm.
I think that and I'm glad that you brought up the newer generation because I think that that's a topic that goes both ways. Like you hear everything where like, oh, the new generation, and it's kind of in like a gripey way. And then there's other people like yourself who are like, hey, like it's an opportunity for us to evolve and adapt and have an open mind. And there have been times in my life, and I don't know if you can relate to this too, but there have been times in my life where, I've kind of got stuck in my like track of thinking.
Mhm.
And someone has asked me why. I'm like, yeah, I do it this way. And they're like, well, why? You're like, could you do it this way? And it would be, more effective. And I've had to kind of sit there and evaluate and be like, oh my gosh, like you're right. Like maybe the way that I've always done it is not the best way or most effective way. And maybe there is another way that would be better. I don't know, And so I think that sometimes it's good to have people challenge you respectfully, but challenge you in a way that kind of makes you start thinking because your perspective, again, it goes back to what we said before, like our perspectives and perceptions of things are based on our past experiences and our preconditioning. Like everything
Mhm.
that we've gone through is going to shape the way that we view the world and we make decisions. And if you have someone else who comes with another perspective, I think that there's beauty in that of like
Yeah.
being able to be like, okay, like let me have an open mind and see, is it better? And maybe it's not, but I
Right.
think having the ability to think things through is a positive thing. And there's been times where I didn't even know how to answer why. When someone's like, "Hey, why do you do it this way?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Because we've
I
always done it that way.
because we've always done it that way. I don't know, So I think it's cool. I think it's exciting to have people who challenge that in a respectful way and try to find more productive and positive ways to move forward.
Tradition has its place. I love tradition,
Mhm.
and there's nothing that makes me more proud than to watch our honor guard during like a parade or a formal occasion, like a funeral. Watching them, crisp, clean. Their uniforms are squared away, and it's that's that tradition that yep, that's what you're looking for. But when you're on the street, when you're doing the job each day, you want to look professional, but you also want to be able to sit there and do the job, and do it comfortably and be functioning. So I think with the tradition, wearing the traditional honor guard uniform is not functional whatsoever. It's good for standing at attention and standing at parade rest and doing all that stuff, but to do an actual police work, absolutely not. So we have to be flexible enough to realize that when the time comes for a formal occasion or for formalities are there. But and while we're doing our job on a day-to-day basis, we can look professional, but we also can be functional. And
Yeah.
that's really what that's the way I look at things.
And I want to kind of switch gears a little bit because we've
Mm-hmm.
talked a lot about the job and,
Mm-hmm.
wellness and performance and all the things, on the job. But there's a whole nother aspect of
Sure.
your life, and that is your home life.
Yes.
And, family wellness, home wellness is a conversation that's come up a lot. And I would love your perspective and your take on how can you create that balance between work and home.
Sure. So it used to be, I mean, like I said, when I retired as a deputy chief for Rochester. Um, I was in charge of operations. So my phone rang almost every night, whether or not we had like a shooting, major incident, homicides. Um, my wife was the best. She'd jump up and she's like, "Oh my God, what the hell's going on?" And I'm like, "It's just the phone again." And I knew who was calling because I knew who my staff duty officer was. But you were married to that phone. You were answering emails at 10 o'clock. You were answering phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was easy to sit there and put in 60, 70 hours a week and not bat an eye because some days you were there for 18 hours. um, when I took this job here, I I made it a priority that wasn't going to happen. First of all, My wife, she's my third wife. So, yep, um, exactly. So I've had three marriages, but my wife, I finally got it right. Finally found the right one, and she has been the most amazing woman that I've ever met my whole life. And so my job is every day to go home to her and take care of her because I wish I had a lifetime of memories with her, but she's my priority. She's always going to be at the top of the priority. This job here, I love doing it. I love being the chief. I love doing everything that we're doing for the officers, but I also have to, I empower and I like to, my bosses are here when I'm not. So I put bosses in place that I know I can trust. And at the end of the day, especially when I go out of town for like a week time and all that stuff, I'm not afraid. I know that I've set them up for success or to be able to handle, any critical incident that might come along. And so I'm not afraid to sit there and just hand the reins off. I still obviously have my phone with me all the time, but it's not like I'm constantly checking it. And I'm also in constant crisis mode. That was the huge ways, especially in Rochester, I was in crisis mode, where here I'm not in crisis mode because unless bullets are flying and people are dying, we can get through this. That's the way I always say it. So relax. You got good people in place. And so when you go home, home is that's where you lay your head, and you can leave and go to your house or you can go to a home. And my wife makes it such an incredibly supportive atmosphere that I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to go home and spend time with her. She's my best friend. I can tell her anything and talk to her about anything. Our kids are amazing. The kids are all doing, one's a social worker. She's an amazing, she's like a supervisor and she just got awarded for all her work doing there. She's drug alcohol counselor. So, I mean, all the people that I see in my job, she sees through on the other side over there. Our middle daughter is a police officer. So, she's following in she's our police officer in her hometown. And you know what? She's doing an awesome job. And then our youngest one is just getting ready to graduate college. So, trying to be as much part of their life as possible. But as we know, life gets in the way. As we get to adults, we start to do our own thing. But when you actually you make the time to actually spend with the family, have family dinners and all that stuff, and when they're together, you cherish it, and when we're not together, you always just check up on them. But you're not like helicopter parents, So realizing that when you go home, your home should be happy. I have basically what we call like a backyard oasis. So I'm a great place where I can sit down and watch TV, and underneath the gazebo, you got the fire pit, you've got all those things that that's where you should be able to go home and feel safe to unwind. I think a lot of people just go home and go home to more chaos sometimes, or maybe you're going home to a place that doesn't really make you feel happy. So having things to do outside of the job is huge. I mean, I play hockey 2 to 3 times a week. I still try to get to the gym every day as I can, do different things. I've got a classic car that I like to sit there and get out and cruise about. Do things that you want to do for yourself, and make sure that, still I'm a police officer, but you got to have those hobbies outside of the work, and you got to have those ways to blow off steam, so to speak. So do it, get out there. And instead of just realizing, oh, I got to go to work first thing in the morning. I don't want to, I don't want to do this. I just want to watch my shows and all that stuff. Get outside. I mean, and be active in your life. Make it a lifestyle choice instead of, thinking like, oh my God, I got to do something to get, or I got to go do this. Life gets in the way. Sure. We all get busy at times, but you know what? You have to realize what's important in life. And, like I said, my wife is the most important thing in my life next to my children. But that's my happy place, is to be home with her.
I love that you showcased that you can love this job, you
Mm-hmm.
can dedicate your life to this job, you can be fully committed to this job,
Yes.
and you can have a fulfilling and healthy home life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can
Yeah.
have it all. And the word that you used is priority.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be a priority to you to, build that home life that is fulfilling and loving and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And having interests in getting up and doing stuff when you're not at work, because like And I've done this. I think everyone's done this. This goes back to that like I don't want to say vulnerability, but just that real like talk of like I've
Yeah,
had those times where I'm like, man, like I'm so stressed or I'm so down, like I don't want to do anything at all. I'm just gonna sit and wither away in front of the TV. And that if anyone who's been through that knows that that is not a healthy way to live your life at
sure,
home. Like
sure.
the spiral of negativity that happens mentally, avoiding things, like not having joy, or feeling physically and mentally well is not it. That is not the
Yep,
way to live. But I think a lot of people do that. And I think it's out of habit or, maybe not wanting to process some of the things that you're currently going through. And so I love that you made it I don't want to say seem like you showcased that you can
mhm,
have both, but it
yeah,
has to be a priority to you and you have to put in the effort to do it. I want to know just out of curiosity because
sure.
we hear this word balance a lot and it's like you
Yep.
need the balance. How do because we know that there has to be a time for you to process and kind of down regulate before you go
Hmm.
home. Like you don't want to take that stuff home with you.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you don't want to shove it down
Yeah,
and then not deal with it. So
yeah,
like where is that balance of like, okay, like we need you to like down regulate and process these things so that you
sure.
don't take it home with
Mhm.
you, so that you can have that healthy home life.
Yeah,
But then it's like, we'll just leave work at work.
yeah.
So like what can you do or like where can you find that balance where like you're still processing the stuff mentally and physically, you're still
Yep.
good, and then you can go home and actually be really present without shoving it down.
The biggest thing, I see is everybody's on their phones all the time. And you could sit there and be on your couch and watching TV, and one person could be checking Facebook, another person could be checking X, whatever it is, and all that stuff, and get lost in it. But the biggest thing I found all the time is when I'm having a conversation with my wife, the phone gets put down. And I hate you go out to restaurants and you see people are on their phones and they're like sitting across from each other and they're on their phones. If I'm here in a space with you, my phone's going down unless we're both looking up something ourselves or doing some research or checking something out. Other than that, the phone gets put down. So when I have a conversation with you, I'm talking to you. I'm not trying to sit there and respond to an email at the same time while I'm trying to have a conversation with you. It was hard for me to get change to that because I was just so used to it when I was RPD. But that's the way it is. My phone gets put down, and if I have something, it's easy enough to sit there and say, "Hey," I'll sit there and, "Hey, baby, I got to just return a couple of emails." Okay, cool. And then she's like, "You know what?" And I can put my attention into those emails and return those things. But when she has my attention, she has my attention. So
Yeah.
I think it's really hard, especially with our lives are on our phones. Everything is in our phone. But it's easy enough to sit there and be on your phone and still have some sort of a conversation, hearing somebody talking in the background, but are you really listening? So
Yeah.
really that's the biggest thing is put the phone down and you know what? And just tell them, say, hey, give me 10 minutes. I got to respond to a couple of things. Okay, cool. No problem. But that's where that awareness is when I'm home. It's not like I turn it off completely. If I have to address something, yep. If I have to go into work in the middle of the night, no problem. Boom. She's as supportive as can be. Just let me know what you need at any point and all that stuff. I mean, it's pretty simple there. If I have to go as far as like, turn like a dinner or something like that, it's understood. I drop you off at home. I sit there and go back to work, and there's no hard feelings. Realizing that it is part of the job. But like I said, when you're home, you get me, and there might be some times when I have to address stuff at work. But you know what? She's like, "Yep, okay, cool, take care of that," and then we'll have our time. So I mean, that's the really biggest thing is when you're talking to somebody, talk to somebody. Don't just listen. You know.
Well, and I think that that sounds like healthy communication. I'm sure that that was learned over time because like I've have had like similar where like I have to learn to be like, give me a second and have that communication. But the one thing I took away is just like be present
Yes.
in your life
Mm-hmm.
and really strive to have genuine connection,
Yes.
in your life. So I love those words of advice.
Yeah.
Last question for
Sure.
you. What words of advice would you give to individuals who are earlier in their career in the context of wellness? Maybe something that you wish you would have known earlier, maybe something that helped you to get through, you know,
Yeah.
over
have,
30 years on this job? What words of advice would you share?
have skills outside of police work. How about that? I think if COVID might have shown us anything is the fact that obviously we were, mandated to be at work all through COVID. We couldn't just, take off. Obviously, first responders are all in the same boat. Um, and, for us, day to day living, it really didn't change too much other than, businesses being shut down, having to wear masks, doing all that stuff. But you look at some of the people that, especially, when it came time to getting things done or fixed, tradesmen, having a trade is phenomenal. So I have a bunch of guys who have different jobs that they had before they were police officers, and they continue to keep their skills up. So it's pretty amazing actually when you talk to them and find out some of the things that they actually do. And it's, we joke about firemen too, always having a second job because firefighting was always their secondary job. But that's really the biggest thing is know that there's life after police work. If you choose to make it a lifetime like I am, I mean, I always knew I was going to be a lifer. Once I start something, I usually carry it right out to the end. So I always want to do it, but realize that there's other things out there and not be afraid to sit there and do that. So really having it goes right back to having life balance. You can do this job, and when you're at the job you give it 110% and you're focused on it. You do it as much as you can, but afterwards there's still another 16 hours to the day. If you choose to do something different, I mean, that's great. So this is 8 hours of your life. When you're here, you got all of me, you got the best of me, and I'm going to sit there and do everything I can to do the job the way it's supposed to be done. That's really a big thing, pride in doing your job, doing the job the way it's supposed to be done, not just collecting a paycheck. I expect you to actually do things. Just like my sergeants, I always tell them I expect you to be a boss. So now instead of just having yourself that you're responsible for, you're responsible for those 10 other guys or girls. And so it's not just collecting a paycheck. You got to do these things to sit there and actually look out for all of their welfare. So same thing with the police officers. You know what? Don't be afraid to sit there and say, oh, I can't do that, or I don't want to let people know that I'm a police officer. Yep, absolutely. I'll tell you exactly what I am, and I'm proud of it. And you'll find most of the time people are like, oh, thank you for your service. You're always going to have your naysayers, but you know what? Don't pay them any attention. And then you sit there and you do your job and have those things outside. So if this job is ever taken away from us, or the job goes away, or you come to that time, you don't want to think about it, 5 years before your retirement. You want to think about it probably halfway through your career and realize maybe I got another 10 years left in this before I can get my pension. What am I going to be doing? So you know what? Take those classes. They're going to set you up for what you want to do, and have that set up. So then when retirement comes, if you want to continue working, cool, you can continue working. If you want to go work someplace else, awesome. You're ready to go. Sit there and do that. And look at it and realize, what's your home life like? What are your kids' lives like? What's your wife's life like? And kind of have that plan. Plan ahead and sit there and think about that stuff. But don't wait till about 5 years before you're going to time to retire. Think about it way beforehand, so that when it does come up, you leave when you decide you want to leave, not because 20 years is here, I'm going to leave. Now what do I do? Have those different life skills to allow you to go do something different.
Thank you. Those are great words of
Absolutely.
advice. And if I may, we talked offline a little bit, and
Sure.
there's one thing that you said, and it really wraps up what you just said in a lot of ways. And it was something that kind of stuck with me. And these are your words, not
Mhm.
mine. And you said, think about your wellness and your retirement now.
Yeah.
Do the
Yeah.
things that you want to do now,
Yeah.
and live your life now. And you said that, you don't want to die right after the
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
like have that longevity, and think about it and prioritize it now. And that was something that stuck with me. And even just in my life of like, think about your future self, live your life, like think
Yeah.
about like what your future is going to look like, and put in place those actions and those steps now to set yourself up for success. So I
Yeah.
wanted to share that because I wrote that down when we talked offline, and I just thought that that was really a powerful message of like,
Hmm.
don't wait, do it
Yes.
now.
Go do it now, man. Exactly. You can't, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So, you know what? Do what you want to do right now, and stuff you, I never wanted to be too old to be not be able to physically do something. So, like I said, I had a fundraiser gala that I was a guest speaker at the other day, and my wife and I were looking, and we were, bidding on a couple of different things. There was a chance to actually take flying lessons. And so I was like, I looked at what the bid was and all that stuff. We started bidding back and forth. I go, just buy it now. I'm like, we're never going to, let's just pay the full price for it so that it's ours. And great. Now we're actually going to get a chance to go out and actually fly a friggin' a
Fun.
plane. So I was like, you know what? Let's do it now because you know what? I never wanted to be that guy to look back and say, I wish I would have done this,
Yeah.
so take those chances, spend the money. You can't take it with you. And I know everybody wants to talk about investing and doing all that stuff and saving it for, kids and all that stuff. You can't take it with you. So, you know what? Go enjoy life. You can set up your kids with a little bit, of, money and all that stuff afterwards. But other than that, go enjoy life. There's so much to this world outside of the small area where you live. So go enjoy it. Don't look at it on a picture. Stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon. I can still remember the first time I did that, and I was like, "Holy crap!" A picture does not do it justice. But I mean, those are the great things that you can always sit back and be like, I've been there, I've done that, I've seen it, and you know what? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I appreciate your time so much. I loved this conversation. I loved your
Thank you
perspective on things, and I appreciate your time. So thank you so much for being here, and
very much.
another happy birthday to you.
Thank
I
you.
hope that the rest of your day is amazing, and I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Have a good night.
You too.